Welcome to the Legacy Leaders Podcast. Are you doing the best for your client to help them create their legacy? Are you creating a plan that goes far beyond finances to help people ensure that it becomes the driving force behind all decisions? On this podcast, hosts Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller will help you with growing your practice and your clients' peace of mind. Together, they bring the best and brightest minds to share with you how to help your clients develop their best legacy. And now, here are your hosts, Katie Beth and Stan.
Hi, this is Jeff Gill. I'm the co-host of Legacy Stories Podcast. My guest today is an associate attorney at C. David Rowe, Daniel Goeckel. And he's a graduate of the University of Georgia. He has a degree in finance, where he worked in the financial services industry for about 2 years. In that time, he achieved his Series 763, Life and Health. And at that time, he decided to go to law school, and he attended University of Florida, Levin College of Law. And I want to welcome you, Daniel, and thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Great. Daniel, just what made you decide to, after achieving your finance degree, decide to go to law school?
So I worked for a couple of years in financial services, and I always liked giving advice. I like being an expert on some areas that are difficult for regular people to navigate. And after spending a couple of years doing it, I realized I wanted to do more. I wanted to be on a different side of the planning. And a lot of it actually started with when I originally started studying for the CFP exam. There's an estate planning portion, and reading through that, I would probably feel more comfortable, and I would enjoy that just a little bit more than giving advice about stocks and mutual funds and portfolios. So from there, I went all in. I'm a person that when I make my mind up, I just go for it. I don't like to wait around. So went all in, and University of Georgia was just down the way. It's where I went for undergrad. And so I put all my chips in that basket, and luckily it all worked out.
Excellent. Well, sounds like you're doing quite well with your transition. So may I ask, why did you choose estate and tax planning?
So tax was the area I gravitated towards in law school. After I got through that first year, which is stuff full of con law and property, I finally got to choose what I wanted to take. And I took the intro to federal income tax, and I really enjoyed it. Like, it seemed like the perfect area for me. It had a mix of like structure and law, and then there's a bunch of good like arguable points, and there's plenty of room to basically to lawyer within. And I just kept going, and I really also enjoyed my trust and estates class. Like, I really enjoyed like the planning aspect, like helping people have certainty and finality with how things are going to go. And of course, life changes, situations change, but you feel a lot more comfortable when you have a plan to start with. And if you have to adjust the plan, you can adjust the plan. So then when I went to the University of Florida for my tax LL.M, I was going to split my time between doing like the corporate transactional tax classes and the estate planning tax classes, because I enjoyed that area of the law, and I really didn't have that much experience in a little bit of it. And as I went through the program, I learned from some great professors there. There's a professor there, Professor Dennis Calfee. He has been teaching the taxation of trust and estates and gift transfer tax and cut 1, 2. Yeah, it's Dennis Calfee, professor at University of Florida. He really helped teach me the way and how to navigate such like a tricky area of law, and I really enjoyed that. So when I was coming out of the program, I had a choice between going and working in the more corporate partnership side or the estate planning side. And I ended up going with the corporate and partnership side, but I always made sure to be keeping up with estate planning, because that's like where my true passion was. And then when I had the opportunity to change over earlier this year, I decided like this was the time for me. And luckily at Deloitte, there were so many opportunities. I was able to work on some gift and estate tax returns and help some a little bit with estate planning there, which was really great because it kept my skills sharp.
Very good. I'm just curious, with your degree in finance, do you think that kind of helped you or influenced your decision with the estate and tax planning?
I think so. I think I've always enjoyed like a little bit of the mesh of the numbers in the law. Some people go to law school, they don't want to touch numbers. They're like, I'm not a math person, but I do like that mix of like you can actually see like the application of the law, and it's great to be represented through different like numbers and everything else.
Excellent. Yeah. So let me ask you, what does that mean to you to be able to help those clients?
It means a lot. I see so many people that come in and they're really stressed. Like it's a very difficult conversation for people, and it's tough for them to process. Like I'm not going to be around forever, and they want to make sure like the life they've built, they can transfer as much, they can control and transfer as much as they can to their family, friends, and loved ones. And when I see these people stressed, I always reiterate to them like, hey, you're going to feel a lot better at the end. Like everybody feels a lot better after they sign the documents and they know like this is exactly what I wanted. Like if I walked outside and got hit by a bus, like it's all taken care of and it's exactly the way I want it to go.
It's a very liberating feeling. I know, I mean, a lot of clients that they, like you said, they're very reluctant, but when it's over with, it's like a burden has been lifted off of them.
Mm-hmm.
So may I ask, Daniel, how did you come in contact with your current firm that you're working with?
So it was a cold reach out. I knew I wanted to work around this area this summer between my second and third year of law school. And I reached out to the attorney I work with now, David. I went on the Georgia Bar Directory and I searched tax law in the Athens, Watkinsville area. And he popped up. I sent him basically a blind email during his very busy season at the time, tax season. And he got back to me and he was like, yeah, I'd love to have you come work with me in the summer. And I worked with him, like I said, between the summer of my second year and third year of law school. And we had kept up with each other over the past couple of years throughout last year law school, LL.M, and even at my time at Deloitte. And when the opportunity came to be where he wanted to bring someone in, it was a very easy conversation because I was happy to work with him. I really enjoyed working with him that summer. I always really valued our relationship. So I was very happy that it all ended up working out.
Yeah, well, it's nice. I mean, you went to work with someone you already knew, so you didn't have that long learning curve or getting to know each other. So very good.
Mm-hmm.
When you look for a client, who would be your ideal client, Daniel?
My ideal client, there's a wide range. It's really anyone who has the urgency to be prepared for end of life and whatever kind of can happen there. Like it's very difficult for a lot of people. There's a lot of people that come to me and they say, hey, I know you're practicing estate planning. Like I'm trying to convince my spouse that we need to go, but it's kind of hard to. And I reiterate the planning point of like, I understand it's a difficult conversation, but the planning needs to be done, and you're gonna feel a lot better when the planning is done. So for me, it'd probably be somebody. It can be it's as wide as does like the person has no plan. Like there are many people they haven't updated their estate planning documents in years. I've heard of someone they're at the grandparent level. They haven't updated their will since their oldest son was in high school, and that was over 45 years ago. So it's kind of crazy that some people they don't really have the urgency to do it, and that's perfectly okay. And then I have certain clients that they want it reviewed every year. They want to make changes all the time. So for me, it's anyone who has the desire to plan and to be on it.
Okay, very, very good. Daniel, so if our listeners wanted to reach out and speak with you, how would they find you?
Well, they can find me through our website, cdavidrowpc.com. It'll have contact on there. We're actually going through a website refresh, so I'm excited to see how that's going to look here in the next couple of weeks. They can also find me on LinkedIn. It's just my first name, last name on LinkedIn, and they also can find me like other social media available. Like I use my regular name, Daniel Goeckel, on pretty much everything. So
okay, So you're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, the whole nine. Okay, great. All right. Just want to looking at the planning aspect. What are some of the common issues that you help with your clients?
So some common issues. A lot of times you'll see clients that their personal residence wasn't titled properly when they bought the house. So a lot of times in Georgia, people will the default is tenants in common. So if one of the spouses were to die, it has to go through the whole probate process. And then there's joint tenancy with right of survivorship, where by operation of law, when somebody passes, the property automatically transfers to the other spouse. So a lot of times I'll see clients, they'll come in, they'll be like, I haven't moved in 20 years, and we'll look up their deed information, and it's like, hey, your deed needs to be retitled. Like that's a very common issue. Also, in general, like I said before, a lot of times people don't update their wills and everything, wills and powers of attorney very frequently. So that's always like a common issue. It's been 10 years, or their kids are, the last time they did, their kids were young, and now their kids are in college. It's a lot of it's kind of like on timing base as well.
Right. Well, that's we're all human, and we tend to procrastinate. And sometimes when we, like you said, maybe 20 or 30 years ago, when they purchase a home, estate planning is the last thing on their mind, right?
Right.
So, in your practice, what do you think are some of the common misconceptions a client may have about estate or tax planning?
I think a lot of times they think like it's much more difficult than it actually is. I think like people try to, or a lot of times they try to overcomplicate how they want certain situations. And it's like, I love all my kids equally, but I love certain kids more than others. So really it's trying to get people to the point where like they can be comfortable with the decision of you might be frustrated with this person right now, but like, this is how you're supposed to plan for like at the end. Like relationships are resolved. Like, do you want to come in here every 6 months and update with your will when your oldest son or your youngest daughter is upset with you or not upset with you?
Right.
Like this, and also on the side of like, this is not like, you might be frustrated with this person now, but it doesn't have to be this way forever. If you want to come in and update your will because something's changed, like that's perfectly fine, but it doesn't have to be set in stone forever.
Right. Can you share a story with us, maybe on a case that has gone wrong? Maybe an example of how procrastination can really affect you, or an improperly designed
yes.
will or estate?
Or people just never even having a will in general. I've tracked down, there are a couple of clients or potential clients, they wanted to acquire like a piece of family property. Let's say there's like a big family farm, and they're like, hey, I want to acquire one of the houses that's on the farm, or just like this one plot. Well, then you go back and you look like, okay, well, who owned it? You start following the chain of title, and you realize this was not properly planned. Like it passed down into estate. So it goes out to like the second cousin's nephew basically has like a 1/63rd share. And the share split through 15, 20 people. All of a sudden, it's pretty much going to be, practically speaking, impossible to get everyone on board to convey the property over to the client. So like I see like that's like a very common issue. Like I'll see is just that when you don't properly plan, we have intestate laws for a reason, to approximate what most people would want. But if you have generations of people who didn't plan, all of a sudden you end up having a piece of property that's basically almost impossible to sell.
Yeah, getting 10 people to agree on anything is tough, right?
Right.
So, especially family members of our money. So,
and ones that are out of state and might feel a certain way about another sibling, like it's just not easy.
Yeah, exactly. I think every family's probably seen some of that in the past, but it's something that you want to avoid at all costs, so it's a great reason to do it now. Can you share an example of a plan or something that you worked on here lately that's gone right for the client?
Well, as of now, I haven't had any wills that I prepared, and I haven't had any clients of wills I prepared that person like pass away. So, but eventually it's going to happen. I have had several situations where people like they are ill, and it's like it may be very soon. It will be very, like their family members will appreciate that they came and did the proper planning ahead of time. I've had a couple people over the past couple months that have reached out and they're like, hey, like my health is declining, like I need to make sure I have this planned. And I think those basically will end up being situations where when I get a phone call that person's passed away from one of their family members, they're going to be probably very appreciative that the person went and got it planned and planned the right way.
Yeah, very, very good. And what are your biggest challenges in your business?
Probably I'd say the two biggest ones off the top of my head. One is getting people to consistently follow through. Plenty of people reach out to me. I meet with plenty of people, and they're all gung ho, and then all of a sudden they get a little uneasy about something, or there's just an aspect of the planning that they really want to take more time to work through, and then all of a sudden 6 months goes by and there hasn't been any changes. I follow up with them, keep up with them. So that's always kind of a difficult point when I guess the level of urgency changes. And two, I think sometimes there's the conversation about compensation and how much these services cost is always tricky, because it lives within a very solid range, but sometimes people balk at certain options versus others. It's like we have these 2 or 3 ways we can go through this. Like there's the really most correct way, but it's going to be the most expensive way. So like managing, I guess, like client expectations with costs is always
Okay.
It's always a tough conversation. But we're very fair to people, and even if there's like if somebody had some slight little update, like we're not necessarily going to charge them. Like we're just gonna we're more so trying to make sure like the client has a good experience, and we do it at like fair value.
Very good. So when you stated that people trying to get people to follow through, have you put your finger on any certain items that maybe keep them from taking that next step, or is it?
I think there's a few. I think sometimes it's very important for people right now, and then something else that pops up that's more important, like just life in general. I think sometimes too people haven't made up their minds about certain issues, or even they're in the middle of some sort of transaction. Hey, I'm selling my house now, I'm buying another house. Like it's like they don't really have the time to dedicate to it. Plus they think like, oh, if I need to focus on this rather than getting my estate plan updated, even though it hadn't been updated in 20 years, because like this is the more readily important thing to me. So it's several things, but eventually people do come back around when it's a priority. It's just I think it's hard to keep it as a main priority unless like you've basically come to that conclusion already.
Okay, very good. And Daniel, I mean, you've been in working with your current firm for about a year or so. What do you like best? What client or what task do you like best?
I really enjoy my interaction with clients. One of the reasons I wanted to get back into working with individuals was that I just really enjoy working with people. Like I really enjoy sitting down with them and having conversations about them, about like what their goals are and what they want to achieve. Like that's something that was really, really important to me. Like, and I appreciated my prior experience, but at a lot of times, like at big firms, you don't really get as much person-to-person interaction. And then I really enjoy tackling difficult estate planning like issues, or I really like when a client wants something that's a little different, and I have to like use my lawyering skills to draft some custom language to help get them to where they want to be. And everyone says that they hey, I just need a simple will, or I just want a simple trust, and it's never really that simple. That's one of the parts I really enjoy is tackling those difficult issues.
Right. Finances are never simple, especially when you have family
That's
and
right.
feelings and relationships involved. It's just complicated. And, that's hats off to to people like yourself that work with those clients and try to make it as easy as possible. So to avoid any pain down the road. I want to thank you for joining us. This has been Jeff Gill with the Legacy Stories podcast, and I've been here with Daniel Goeckel. And thank you, Daniel, for joining us. And thanks everyone for listening. And we'll see you again next time.
You've been listening to the Legacy Leaders podcast with Katie Beth Hand and Stan Miller. For more information on them and the show, please visit pinnaclelegacylaw.com. If you like what you've learned today, do share the program with your friends and subscribe wherever podcasts are found.